So today we have Sriram with us, and he is from Singapore, and he is here to tell his story of how he came to United States, what were his successes, failures, hardships, and what advice he has for everyone who's listening to this podcast. So first of all, welcome Sriram to the podcast. I'm really excited to share your journey, share your story. So why don't you take some time and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Sriram. I'm an international student on an F1 visa. I came here from Singapore back in 2017. Um, I actually came with my parents. My dad was an F1, so I came here as an F2. So basically I went to high school, did my high school for a year, and then I did my undergrad, and I did my master's. So I just graduated my master's program, and I'm currently on the job hunt looking for jobs.
Great, great. So basically, if I get it right, so what year do you come to United States? Like, was it 2018 something or
2017.
2017? Yeah, that's what I remember from what we talked. But okay, so 2017 you came with your parents. So because your father was an F1, right? So
Mhm.
was he studying something? What was the coursework? What was he into? Because you were in the high schools, you were trying to complete your education, right? So
Right.
what was that?
Yeah, so he studied mechanical engineering,
Okay, great.
um, and I pivoted towards computer science for my undergrad.
Oh, great. And if I remember correctly from our conversation, you just completed your master's, right?
Yeah,
Awesome. So congratulations on that. And that's
thank
why
you.
you're on the hunt for a job.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. So before we get into a little deeper into your story, right, of
Mhm.
how everything came into place, why you came here, what you are doing right now, let's go a little bit back into the your maybe from starting from your uh, uh, journey in Singapore, right? So, like coming back to that, like what first of all made you and your parents move to United States? That would be my first question to start with. Like, what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So the motivation behind is for me to have a better life here,
Mm,
and also for my parents to professionally advance in their career. Um, but I feel like the main reason of us wanting to come here to the US is basically for us to have a better life in the
mm,
US
right.
and maybe wherever I finally decide to live, which could be in the US or outside the US,
Mm,
then I feel like this would be a good stepping stone.
right. So again, I think a lot of us who are listening to this podcast may
Hmm.
have this question in their mind. And this question is coming from all the news that we hear about Singapore, right? Singapore is a developed, like it's a developed country, has one of the best airlines, one of the best airports,
Right.
really good infrastructure. So again, my question is again kind of coming back to that life thing that you mentioned, like have a better life. So what did you miss in Singapore that you think, or your parents think you would find here in the United States? What's that particular thing?
Um, Definitely public transit
Hmm.
and just the community feel that you would get because Singapore is very densely populated.
Mm,
So you have a lot of people who just living in very tight, um, not tight spaces, but more of like in high-rise apartments.
mm,
So I feel like that was something I wish I could replicate here in the States, but
mm.
we can't because it's just too big. So
Right.
that was my first initial adjustment that I had to go through was just the lack of personal touch.
Mm,
Not personal touch, I would say like getting used to the individualistic lifestyle
mm.
versus a more collectivistic Asian oriented lifestyle
Right.
that I
Right.
was keen. Yeah.
Right. So I think these are the things that you probably miss from Singapore,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But coming back to the question, like, was better life in the sense of education, if I'm right or wrong in assuming that maybe you came here for a better education, to make a better life? Was that the motive?
Yeah, so the motivation was better education and
Mhm.
definitely better life.
Mm,
I'm
right.
not saying that life in Singapore was bad. I'm
Mm,
just comparing it
Relatively.
Relative. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, coming to this, uh, like your parents came here, you came along with them. So, what currently is the visa status of your parents? Like, are they on green card right now? Because it's been what, 2017, almost 7 years. So, what is their visa status? What is your visa status to start with? What exactly uh, are you on, right?
So I don't want to dive in too deep into like the personal um,
Hmm.
topic just because this is going to be shared on YouTube. But
Right.
basically, my parents are on a work visa and I'm here on a student visa. I
Okay.
just don't want to go into the
Makes sense.
details just because I know that this is going to be
Makes sense.
shared across everyone. So
Right. No,
sorry about that in advance.
I
Yes.
completely respect that.
Yeah.
So, coming a little bit into your education, then, right?
Yeah.
So, you came here, you did your high school here, and then you moved out, like, started your bachelor's, like,
Hmm.
and then you also did your master's. Let's
Yeah.
look at that, right? So, how
Yeah.
was that experience? Let's start with the high school experience because I think, like, I came here for my master's. A lot of people I
Hmm.
talk generally come here for your master. So, most of your schooling has been done, let's say, in your home country, right?
Right.
So, how was that experience? Like transition from Singapore to US doing your high school? What was the differences? What were the things you liked? What you disliked? Let's start with
I feel like high school here was exactly like what I saw in the movies.
that.
Like it
Okay,
was like the dream come true where I was just like, oh my gosh, people are wearing makeup, people are wearing whatever they want,
right,
people are just calling their teachers by their first name versus back in Singapore it's Mr. So and so, Mrs. So and so, Miss So and so.
right,
So and just a more laid back lifestyle is what I really caught my eye coming here.
right.
Um, and I felt like back home in Singapore, it was more regimented. It was a little bit more of a uniform structure that was
Hmm,
there.
right.
Um, so I just felt like, so I just felt like coming here just made it feel like as if, um, I don't know, like it just felt more free
Hmm, right.
in a
I,
sense.
that's what America stands for, right? The freedom.
Yeah.
So, like, I think I can relate to that because back in India, and
Hmm.
especially in India, the school system is where the respect is all what you go after, right? You should call your teachers as like sir, ma'am, or maybe add some sir, ma'am to their name if you want to call by their name, and then it's all about that kind of tight structure that
Hmm.
you have to go
Hmm.
after, right?
Yep.
But I think you're right. Like when you come to United States, it's more about okay, the teacher and the student doesn't have that teacher student relationship. It's more about a friendly relationship of
Yeah.
how one can guide the other, and maybe the teacher sometimes is learning from the kid itself, like how to adapt to them, right? So anything that you disliked about the system that you think that well this should not be there and it should have been different?
In the US.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like something I disliked about the US, at least with respect to K through 12, high school, no, K through 12, like K through 12 system
Mm,
is kind of like the lack of pushing kids to kind of do their best.
okay.
Because I noticed that with a lot of high schools, at least with respect to my state, so long as you do like the basic 4 year English classes and you
Mm,
do up to algebra or geometry, I think you can still graduate with your high school diploma. Like that's what I don't know. Like that's just what my school's district had, and I
right,
felt like it was a little too of a low ball situation. Like I don't know. I thought the bar was set too.
right,
Like it
right.
wasn't set at a point where I feel like people could kind of push themselves because
Mm,
they're like, oh, all I gotta do is just pass algebra one, algebra two, geometry, and I'm done.
right.
So I felt like people were a little bit, well, I just want to get this thing done and over with. So,
Mm,
so that was what I kind of felt that could have been improved, and that's something I disliked. It's just not being able to push the kids to kind of take better
right.
classes or higher level classes just because the state law requires you you basically take a certain math class, you're
Mm,
done. You don't have to. And
Right.
calculus, they will do like multivariable stuff. Like you just gotta do geometry and you're done. So
Mm.
I felt
Right.
like the bar was set a little too low.
Mm.
Another thing, yeah, sorry. And
No,
another
go
thing
ahead.
I
Go ahead.
disliked was um the food, the cafeteria food.
Right,
I
right,
like
right.
the food from US versus Singapore. The food in Singapore was a lot better. At
Mm.
least in Singapore, they always had like they basically had like half your plate be whole grains and the other and basically the other quarter being vegetables and the other quarter being fruit. But here it's just packaged crap and blah blah blah, and I just didn't buy it.
No, makes sense, makes sense. And I think that's where I think this is where it leads to the cultural shock as well, right? Because the
Mm,
culture
mhm.
in Asia versus what it's in the West, it's very different, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that is the reason, like, we see some statistics, right? That
Hmm.
Asian students or Asian children in US do really well because I
Yeah.
think they are coming from that the mindset that you have to go always for the best, right? You have to
Mhm.
push yourself until you find your best version, right?
Right.
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 I think well, I think both the mentalities are important. I think there should be a balance, right?
It should.
That students who want to really achieve something should be able to achieve. And if someone wants to diverge from it and do something else, they should also have the courage and the guidance to do that, right?
Yeah.
So how, like in school, like how were you doing? Like, if you don't mind sharing, like, were you doing really well in the class, or were you struggling in the start because of the change in the culture, or was it a smooth ride altogether in the school?
I felt like it was a smooth ride mostly. Like just because the bar in Singapore was set so high that
Yes.
you have to like that literally have to learn algebra, calculus, all in like algebra, calculus, all in 10th grade, and the
Right,
bar is set at that level, and there's no way you could say, no, I cannot do this.
right.
Like everyone who choose that stream or that stream of classes have to do it.
Yep.
So whether you're struggling or not, like everyone signed up for it, so you have to do it. And
Right.
there's no kind of flexibility. Like it's not like I don't know, like I just felt like it's all set in stone based on your previous year's grades. So what happens is if you messed up in math and you want to take an advanced math class in your next year, they will not let you do it.
Right. Right.
So I just felt like the education system in Singapore was a little bit more rigid. So
Mm, it's
coming
more
here, it
flexible.
felt like more of a piece of cake. I was like, oh, I already learned this. It's kind of like, oh, I already know this. So it felt like a smooth ride for me.
Right. That's great. That's great. And I think maybe this could be a really helpful episode for parents, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially, let's say if someone have children back
Mm-hmm,
in India or maybe in Singapore or any part of the world, and they want
mm-hmm.
thinking about coming here, right? And I think this can help them understand that it would not be that difficult for your child to adapt, right? It
Yeah,
will definitely take time. It's not that the
right.
first day would be all honey soaked, but I think with time, definitely the children can adapt and do probably really well in this education system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think putting more emphasis on that, and then we'll definitely start talking about your bachelor's, your master's experience, and what exactly is your future path here. But like coming to this, I think a lot of maybe you might be aware of Indian institutions like IIT, uh,
Yes, yeah.
right? You might have heard about them. They
IIT,
sort of
yeah.
tough, right? We have so
Mm-hmm.
much competition back home. It's like millions of people are trying for one exam, right? It's that's why it becomes very difficult, even if you know the basics, but you're competing with the best of the minds, right?
Right,
So
right.
how is that here? Like when, let's say, I think people do their SATs, ACT, like what is called? I forgot the name, but SATs, ACT,
ACT, yeah.
right,
All
right,
those. Mm-hmm.
and you give them to basically qualify for the admissions in colleges. So how does that
Mm-hmm.
process? Do you think it's very competitive, or do you think it's more like if you know the basics, right, you can qualify?
So I feel like with respect to SAT, ACT, AP test, I feel like a lot of them are just more geared towards like if you know your basics, you'll be
Hmm.
fine.
Okay.
Like it's not a competitive thing where you have to push your kid. Oh my goodness, why aren't you the top of the top?
Okay.
Because I feel like the US admits people more of a holistic basis.
Mm.
So it's not just your grades, but it's your extracurriculars, what you've done outside of school,
Mm.
your character. And
Mm.
I feel like that is where, so I feel like that is where the US shines more is more of the emphasis on the all-rounded individual
Right.
rather than the narrow like needle on the haystack type of situation where you just
Mm.
focus on only good grades and high grades
Okay. Right.
because it's very detrimental. And
Right.
I feel like I want to give this message to future parents who might be thinking of coming here. Um, there is so the way it works here is your kid is going to be given lots of chances to do their best. They can always retake the SAT, ACT over and over again, like
Oh, it's
until
not like it can only give it once. Wow.
no, no. So you can actually retake it again. So there's no pressure, there's no harm. There's
Mm.
also no need to push your kids in
Mm.
SAT cram schools, ACT tuition, all of those things in their ninth grade. Like you don't have to do that. Like
Right.
just I don't know, like just kind of let them kind of discover for themselves what they like and what they don't like.
Mm.
And I feel like if they put in the work consistently, like over a period of time, because that's how your grades are measured. It's measured
Right.
freshman year all the way to your senior year of high school.
Right.
So the way it works is like each and every semester is important.
Mm.
So I feel like if the kid puts in the effort over a period of time, they will be just fine.
Right. I
Yeah,
think I think to compare it to, I think definitely the education system maybe change is going to change or is changing across back home because I left
yeah,
India back in 2012, so it's been 12 years now. So I'm not much up to date with how
yeah,
the education system is doing, maybe in Singapore, India. But I
yeah,
think one thing I think what you mentioned, I like that developing the extracurricular side of a child is
yeah.
also important, right?
Yeah.
Because when I sometimes feel that okay, well, I only concentrated most of the part on studies, getting good grades, right?
Mhm.
Sports and all that was like okay, well, there's a class, I'll attend that. It's not something that will bring any good to me if I go to a college, right? But here in US, it's more like okay, if you have good grades in sports, that might help you get into a get good college, right? So your
Yeah,
extracurricular has a good weightage
have
in
an
deciding.
impact. Yes.
So I think I kind of like that approach, but I think I also kind of agree with your point that maybe there should be a little bit more, let's say, push that okay, try to do your best, right? Bring the best in. Maybe it's any field, like it's not generally in math and science. It could
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
any topic that you want to be, but try that, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's so. I think you said that you can give ACTs, SATs, as many times you want until you succeed or until you find a score which is
Yeah.
appropriate, right?
Yeah.
How was it for you? Like I think based on what I hear till now, it must be cleared in once or first go for you, or how was that process?
It kind of took me two tries to
Two
kind
times.
of get the score that I wanted to.
Okay.
Because I wanted to try for like the high range score, but I was at the 75th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And basically my high school teachers were like that is fantastic. You don't even have to retake it.
Right, right,
Uh, my parents decided, you know what, let's just retake. And I'm like, no, I don't want to retake. Like I'm already like this score is good.
right,
So I just felt like So yeah, so I just felt like it took me less tries to get the score that I want, but I've also seen my peers who had to take the test multiple times
right,
just because their foundations were a little bit lacking or they just
right,
needed some extra help from the
right.
teachers.
And would you mind sharing your score if you don't?
I don't want to share my score, but it's around the 75th to 80th percentile.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah.
And after your SATs, like what's the process of getting into an institution? Like, let's say once you get your SAT, do you I think you submit your applications, your essays, and
Yes.
you rank your colleges based on where you want to study.
Mhm.
Then you wait for your results, right? So what were
Yeah.
your colleges that you wanted to go for your bachelor's? Were any top ones? Anything that you were like, okay, if I get this, I'm good with this. What was that list?
Um, so I only came here like 2017, and I only had 1 year to
Mm,
kind of get used to high school, and then literally by the time I graduated, it was like, oh, go to college. So I had no time to really just decide, oh, whether I want to go to MIT or UC Berkeley. Like I don't have the time to think about it. I was just like, whatever school it takes me in is whatever I'm gonna go.
okay.
So ended up I went to the school where I currently live in, and that was actually my university for the past 6 years. So undergrad and grad.
Okay. What was the name? Sorry, I didn't get it.
Wichita State University.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
A-
it's a state
And
school.
you did your bachelor's and master's there, right?
Yes.
So for the master's, did you have to do a GRE and all of that again, or was it just your professor wanted to continue in the master's program?
Um, as far as I know, I didn't have to take the GRE
Okay.
just because my degree was from the US, so my undergrad degree.
Oh, yes, yes. And your
Yeah,
credits must have helped you get into that master's
yeah,
program.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. So let's go a little bit deeper into the bachelor's side because I recently did a podcast with Aditya, and
Hmm.
he also came here for his bachelor's. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, he did it in data science from UC San Diego.
Oh,
So I think it would be a good perspective to compare and see how was your experience in the bachelor's. Like,
yeah.
what were the things that you think were really good? Again, similar comparison. What are the things that you think should have been improved? Were the
Yeah,
coursework appropriate? What was your overall experience? And I think you did your computer science, right?
computer science. Yeah,
So yeah, let's go a little bit deeper into that.
yeah. Yeah. So for my undergrad, my courses were just gen ed classes. You just had to take like this random history class, random finance class, random all of those random classes.
Mm,
In addition to like math, physics, um, linear algebra.
mm,
So those are the foundational engineering classes that I had to take in my first 2 years of undergrad.
right.
And then for my junior and senior year, that was where I started going in more into data structures, algorithms, data, like databases. And then I even had a senior design project that I had to do,
Okay.
like during my like like during my last year of my undergrad.
Mm,
So it kind of started off easy, but then it started getting a little harder towards the end.
right.
But it wasn't like hard. It was just the difficulty level was a little bit more, but it's not like terribly difficult.
Difficult. Mm.
Yeah,
And did you find it more practical than theoretical, or was it a balance of both?
I felt like it definitely leaned more towards the theoretical side,
Mm,
and that was where I struggled in getting internships
okay.
because all I did was just past projects. I had
Mm,
no internships under my belt,
right.
like during my junior year because I think that was when COVID happened,
Oh, 2020, yes. Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
So all the companies were like, we are downsizing people, we are laying off people. So they had to cancel a bunch of positions and
Mhm.
wasn't able to get any internships during my undergrad.
Right.
I was able to get internships for my master's, which
Right.
somehow miraculously happened, which I will probably get into it later in the podcast.
Mm,
Um, yeah, but I feel like it was more theoretical. The
right.
practical aspects was only coming in my last year, where I had to do like
Project.
a project with my teammates, and I had to collaborate with electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists. So I kind of had to like kind of it's kind of a multidisciplinary project
Right. Right.
where we
Nice.
were not given any guidance. The only guidance we were given from our teachers or professors were like, make sure you turn in your project deliverables. Make sure you turn in your Gantt chart. Make sure you turn in all of those like admin work. That was it. Everything else was like you figure out and you do it on your own. So
Right. Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. This is, I think it's So when I came here for my master, just to give, because I came here from, so coming back to bachelor's in India. So I think
Yeah.
it was very similar. Like you go through most of the theoretical class, you have practical tests.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in bioinformatics, some coding was also there. And I think
Okay.
the last semester was like half of your semester just project. So where you come up with your teammates, you decide what topic you want to work on, what would be your
Yeah.
uh, research, conclusions, and stuff. So I think I kind of agree that both have a very similar way of teaching.
Yeah.
But when I came here for masters, and then I'll come back to your story. So the
Yeah.
masters here, when I came, it was very practical. It was like less theory, more work, getting more hands-on training, which I kind of
Mm-hmm.
liked, right? Was it similar for your computer science masters, or was it again more theoretical?
I feel like for my master's, it was a little bit more practical.
Practical. Yeah, I
More,
think everyone says that. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. And did what side did you like the most? Theoretical side, or I think you said you don't like the theoretical side that much. You struggled there. So practical side you liked most,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like hard
Most
coding things and stuff, like making things
exactly.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming to, I think you mentioned about the internship, right? So I think when I was talking to Aditya in the previous podcast, he also said that finding an internship was very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Um, I kind of shared my story, and just to recap some of it, like I also got an internship based on some luck and some hard work definitely is important. Your skills is
Yeah.
very important. Sometimes luck is also important, right?
Yeah.
Like finding the right opportunity at the right time, right? So when you were trying for your internships in your bachelor's, and I think COVID was there, things were not that great.
Yeah.
Was the struggle more about skills, or was the struggle more about less positions out there?
I felt like I struggled more with the skills.
Hmm.
Like just because the only jobs I knew at that time that I had some experience was software engineering. That was all I know that computer science people can do.
Right, right,
Because I was only a sophomore at that time. I was only a second year student.
right,
I didn't have a chance to take electives. I didn't even have a chance to explore my current career path, which is actually data analyst, data scientist. I didn't
Mhm.
even know that this option was a possibility. I
Yeah,
was thinking of low-key changing my major because I couldn't do programming. I
right,
was like, maybe I should do psychology, or maybe I should do aerospace. I was thinking of pivoting towards that direction.
right, right. But you ended up with computer science. So what was the reason behind that?
Uh, Number one, you make a lot of money. Just
I
kidding.
get
Um, and number two, I felt like I don't know, I just love computers.
Hmm,
So I wanted to make a career in computer science, but that was my undergrad kind of version of why I wanted to be a computer science major.
right.
But I feel like master's is really where I dived in really
Deep, yeah.
deeply into data science.
And let's go into your master's. So I think it was probably a 2-year program. You did it the
Yeah,
same university, and you said you found an internship in your master's, right?
yeah,
So let's start with that first, because I've heard some really uh, tough stories around it. Like people have applied to a lot of internships, tracked them, and it is difficult to get one these days, right? And I
and
think one of the people I was talking very early in my YouTube career when I was starting these videos and stuff, I met someone from IU, and then I was talking to them, and they said, if you want to get an internship, let's say in summer of 2024, you should be applying from October of 2023. So I was like, okay, well, that was not the case when I was in the IU or doing my master. So let me hear from you. Like, how
yeah.
is it? Is it that tough right now?
Um, so my master's are 2-year program. I shot up my master's in I think fall of 22. So that was like August 2022, and I graduated like 2 months ago. So that was like
Right.
May. And I had a chance to do my first internship last May.
Okay.
So it was like a summer internship.
Hmm.
And this was basically with a tech company that's affiliated with my university.
Okay. Hmm.
So I don't know. So I was just cold emailing like the like so basically I was cold emailing the employer. I was sending in applications online, but apparently no one read it. And
Mm,
then I decided, I am just gonna email this guy and see if he responds. And
right.
then he said, okay. And then he didn't respond. And that was back in April 23. And
Okay.
then basically in May 23, after my first year of master's, I decided to kind of follow up and reach out again. And
Mm,
he was like, sure, I love your resume. Let's just have an interview. And I was like, what?
nice. Nice.
So it was kind of a combination of luck and a little bit of persistent following up.
Yes. Yes. I think persistence, resilience are very important when the market is tough, right? I think there have been periods when the jobs were in plenty, supply was also really good, so
Right.
things were not that bad.
Yeah.
This right now, supply is in surplus, but the demand is pretty low, and that's why I think it's like a lot. And then layoffs, like so many layoffs happened over the last year, continuing in this year, and like a lot of friends of mine are being in the market searching for jobs. It's becoming really tough, so I can understand like how tough it has been, right? And I think this is where your persistence, resilience, and
Mhm.
motivation has to live for it, right? The hope
Yeah.
should not die, right? Now, how was the internship experience? Was it like a 3 months internship or was it a small one? How was that overall?
So basically, it was a 3-month internship experience, and they wanted someone who's able to build a database,
Okay.
like for their class, not for their class, like for their like for their company, and they
Hmm.
wanted someone who has good SQL skills.
Okay.
So they looked at my resume. They were like talking about their recent projects. They were having all these behavioral interview questions, and apparently I did really well in the interview, and they
Right.
extended an offer on the very same day, which is
Wow, that's
insane.
great. That must be exciting, right? That must be
Yeah,
like, okay, there's something happening.
yeah, there's something happening.
Right.
So I went in my first day. I had no clue what was happening because my team lead was just throwing a bunch of jargon at me, and it took me some time to kind of get used to it. It took me
Hmm.
about 2 weeks
Right.
to kind of get used to the company structure, the way things worked.
Hmm.
And then basically after the 2 weeks, I was kind of doing things in full speed, and I
Right.
was able to help the team out to build a database.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah,
I think it's not just you. I think even seasoned professionals, when they join something new,
hmm,
first 2 weeks are always like, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that.
right,
And then just catching up on things and yeah. So I agree. I think it happens with me as well. Like I was like, oh, I don't know this. Okay. What I've been doing for these last 12 years.
right,
But
right.
I think it's good to not know all the things. So that's you always on the track to learn, right? Which is
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Now, switching gears, like, okay, because so you're still on your F2 in your master's, assuming, or did you change to F1? What was that process? How's your visa status with that?
Oh, okay. So I changed from F2 to F1 back
Oh,
in
okay.
2018.
Oh, for your bachelor's, and then you continued on your F1. Okay.
Yeah, but that was how I was able to do my internships and stuff.
Right. And that's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
So coming to your current state, like you're just graduated, congratulations on that.
yeah.
And I think you're looking for jobs or you already found one. What's the current state?
I'm still job hunting like millions of other people are
Right,
doing.
right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And another thing is, I actually had another internship in January.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Last this year, just this year, January.
Yeah. This year. Yeah.
Okay, how was that? How was that? Like
And
it
that
again?
one I got through a faculty advisor who teaches a data science class
Mm,
in my school.
right,
And she actually runs this company. I'm not going to reveal the company's name just to
right,
protect privacy. Um, but basically, she saw my skills in my first semester when
right,
I took her class during my master's, and she was blown away. And she
right.
decided to give me an offer to work there for like I don't know 4 months, 5 months, something like that.
That's great.
So yeah,
So I think if I have to say this, that networking is somehow the key, right?
it's
Let's
key.
say when
It
you
is
know how to network, when you want to be in touch with other people, that could help eventually, right? So is some networking was networking like let me reframe the question. So was networking a part you were working on already from your master's? Like you were like, okay, I have to network, I have to build this network as I'm graduating. Was that something you were doing already, or you came to know about it as you started?
I felt like I was networking, like during my master's. It was
Hmm.
just a go-to thing, but I wasn't active on LinkedIn as what I
Right.
was before. Because right now I'm active every day. I'm
Hmm.
posting a bunch of things. I'm commenting a bunch of things. I'm networking with
Right.
recruiters and my current
Hmm.
alumni who got employed. So
Right.
I felt like I was already networking from a very start. I've been attending career fairs in my
Great.
school.
Great.
I've been using my school's like career services.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is one thing I feel like international students who come in should do in their very first semester and not let it wait till my last semester. Because
Right.
if you wait till the last semester, it's too late.
Too late. Yes. And so I think when I was talking to you earlier, like when I was taking in some feedback from you of how you want to do this call, what you want to talk about it,
Yeah,
you mentioned about plan A, B, C, right?
yeah,
Having multiple plans. And I think this is something I tell people as well, like don't just go with one plan because you never know
right,
what will the outcome. And if you're not adapt, if you're not able to adapt to new situations, new plans, then things can become very difficult, right?
right.
So let's talk about that. Like how you integrated all these plans and what's your advice on these, like having multiple plans, when to switch, when to adapt. What's your thought about it?
Are you talking about right now? Or are you talking about during my master's?
Like whichever way you want to start. We can always go reverse engineer and go to masters, or you can start with your masters. Whatever you like to start with.
Okay. Yeah, so for my master's, I felt like I was always in the networking side. Like I wasn't super like I don't know, like I just did not care about my courses as much.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm gonna like care as in I wasn't super like oh I gotta get a 4.0 in all my classes. Like I wasn't that undergrad guy
Right.
where I kind of fought over like the 1 point or something. I was just like if I do my best, that's all that matters. So
Hmm.
I felt like that was how I was able to kind of ease the pressure off and just kind of like focus more on enjoying the master's journey
Hmm.
rather than seeing it as oh my gosh another 2 year journey
Right.
because I felt like if I had been focusing on only the grades mentality, I would not have gotten this networking opportunities. I would not have gotten my internships.
Makes
I
sense.
probably would not have gotten those.
Right. Because I
So I
think
felt like the first thing to do is to just kind of like ease off and just try to enjoy the journey and appreciate it.
right.
Like that'll be my first kind of
Right.
like step.
I think you mentioned an amazing point,
Mm-hmm,
enjoying the process, right? Because a lot of us when we come here, like we are just after the grades. Because and again, it can be because of our schooling system, our education system. We are molded that way, that
mm-hmm,
grades is something that we want to go after. But I like your idea of being more flexible and being more in like being on the side of enjoying the process, because this is something that I've realized that when you start enjoying the process, right? For example,
mm-hmm.
let's say you start exploring the country, you make more friends, you hang out, you discuss different topics. I think your
Yeah,
perspective starts to build, right?
yeah.
And you learn more things. I think, for example, let's say if you start uh, exploring the country, like when I was in Boston, my wife and I we moved to San Jose. We did the whole road trip. It was like over 7 days exploring the country in one straight line. And I learned
Mm-hmm,
a very new perspective of this country, like how this country is formed, divided, what are exactly the things that we don't know about when we don't travel, right?
yeah.
So I like that thing. So how did it help you, like enjoying the process? How did it help you in your master's?
So I kind of saw my master's program as a way for me to kind of take classes that I want to finally take, but I wasn't able to take in my undergrad. So
Right.
I took full advantage of that and I focused on deep learning, machine learning, data science classes, and I really tried to like zero in those classes and sign up for those as early as possible.
Right.
Um, I've also been a little bit more extroverted during my masters. I felt like I was an introvert during my during my undergrad.
Right.
Of like I've just been talking to a lot of people. I've been making new friends. I've been hanging out with them, and I felt like those connections have what kind of made me stress less about what I cannot control. Like I cannot control the job market. I cannot control immigration issues, but I can control how I'm spending my time right now and in the next
Makes sense.
few months. So
Right.
I really felt like I was able to just let go and just enjoy the
Mhm.
process and
Right.
then worry about the things later that can be worried about later. So,
Wow. I like that idea. I think that is something I also did. Remember, like made a lot of friends.
mm,
Some we are still in contact. Some definitely we are not in contact because everyone has their own life. We move on. But I think that kind of gives you an understanding that networking or having friends in these years is very important, right?
it
Because that's
is.
your support system, right?
Yeah,
Especially during your bachelor's and master's, you can't really go for your parents with every problem, right? You need friends to talk about
right,
problems and sort them out yourself, right? So
right.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. And coming to your job search, right? I think you, your friends, maybe your peers are all in the job search, right? Maybe
Mhm.
everyone is looking for a job, everyone's trying to find something that they want to do. So, do you still communicate? Do you guys still meet, discuss what's your strategy? How should we plan? If there is any information, how is passed it? Like that networking thing, right? Like, for example, let's say my friend is looking for a job. If I find something on LinkedIn, I'll forward it to him. Say, look at it. Or look forward to her and say, look at it. Like, and try for this, right? So, is that something you guys do, or how you are going after all this job search overall?
Yeah, so I have been communicating with my friends a lot more.
Hmm.
I've also been more vulnerable and kind of sharing what I really feel with the closest of my friends
Right.
because there are some issues that I just don't want to share with everyone. So I
Makes sense.
wanted to kind of separate those things and just kind of share um the stuff that I feel comfortable the most with the
Right.
other person. I've also been networking with my friends who got jobs, and I've also been asking them to forward me any jobs that they know. I've also been asking them to look at my resume and to kind of critique it
Hmm.
and kind of provide me with feedback.
Hmm.
And I feel like my friends now have like I just feel like we have bonded so well to the point where my friend is like, "Don't give up. The right job is there for you."
Makes
And
sense.
there are some days where I'm like, "Yes, yes, I want to do it." And there's some days now where I'm like, when is this gonna end?
Right.
So I've gone through my highs and lows and it's
Right.
still ongoing. It's kind of a journey. So
And to that, Sriram, I will say one thing. I think recently I was affected as well, right? You might have seen my LinkedIn
yeah,
talking about that. I kind of had this post every Monday talking about how I'm doing, right?
mhm,
And I think one thing that I realized is okay, we try to show as much positivity as we can so that anyone else who is affected also learns from it, gets more motivated, right?
right,
But internally, inside, you will always have your ups and downs, like highs and
right,
lows, right? I think
mhm,
for me, some days were very good. Like, okay, I'm getting calls, I'm getting messages, I'm getting response. Okay, something's going to happen. And some days it's like, okay, reject, reject, reject. Everyone is rejecting me. Why is that happening, right?
right,
I think overall, what it tells you is that this journey is very important because at the end, that will make you grounded. That will make you realize the importance of hard work and importance of and skill that you have gained over the time, right?
yeah,
Overall, I think to sum it up, because I think you are still searching for a job. I know it's tough. The market is tough, but it's also
mhm,
getting better. I think things are in the right direction, hopefully. So, how do you kind of keep at it? Because I know there's a 90-day clock, right, on OPT. I think that's what
right.
you'll be utilizing. So, how do you manage that? Like, is there anything that you're planning for that? Any plans that you think could be helpful for other people to think about?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my OPT is still processing, even though
Okay.
I applied like early April, it's still under process.
Oh, okay. So that's good, right?
Yeah, because it's just been delaying, and I think that's good in my situation, and I'm
Yes.
sure for everyone else.
Right.
So one tip I want to provide to um job hunters who are not able to secure a paid job,
Mm,
assuming that the person is in their first year initial OPT, look for volunteer positions like
mm,
within your university
right.
and try to contact professors who do research in the field that you in the field that you majored in,
Mm,
because that is what I planned to do. Like once I get my OPT card,
mm,
is to kind of go to my professor's research lab and volunteer there. My professor is gracious enough to actually
help
give
you.
me the opportunity to
Right.
do some volunteer work. And in my case, it's just a literature.
Right.
So it's kind of like an easy 20-hour gig where we can
Right.
just do it and I can have that count as employment
Right.
while also trying to search for full-time jobs on the side.
Right. No, I completely concur. I think this is something I also learned. I was not aware of this. So I think when I was hosting Suhaib,
Mhm.
like the second chapter. He I think you should watch his podcast. Very motivating. I think he got
Okay.
his EB1, EB2, and IW approved, the green card thing. And he also was in the same situation. Like COVID was there, he was not able to get any internships. So he started volunteering for a non-profit organization. And that way
Yeah.
he stopped the clock and then continued his research to find new jobs or let's keep applying and stuff. So that's a
Yeah.
great advice. I think a lot of many people who are on OPT might not know about this and they're like struggling each day, thinking that, oh, well, each day is passing and they cannot stop this, right? But it's possible if you go to a non-profit or start volunteering somewhere and then at least stop the clock, get more time so that you can find what you
Yeah.
want to really work for, right?
Yeah.
That's a
I
great,
think
that's a
another
great,
advice I want to give
please, please.
is don't obsess over sponsorship. I know that a lot of companies are not willing to sponsor right now
Yeah,
due to the upcoming elections and due to just how crazy the job market is.
right.
What I recommend that you guys do is advocate for yourself. If you
Mm,
get that interview and if you're able to, like tell the interviewer your situation.
right,
Like just kind of like be honest, but don't open up so much to give them a reason to say no. But
right,
kind of like be honest, but also like don't go with the expectation of, oh my gosh, like this employer needs to sponsor me.
right, right,
Because I feel like that's where the 3 years of OPT
right.
time is
Let's
scared
do
for
one.
you
Yeah,
to like for you to find a employer willing to sponsor.
right.
And this is also another thing is try to find H1B cap exempt positions if you're
Mm,
able to.
exactly.
So things like professor jobs at a university or hospitals or nonprofits.
Research jobs.
Also, yeah, yeah, yeah. And another thing is, I know it's not easy, but look for other countries. I have been starting the process of looking for the Canada PR, the
Yeah.
EU blue card. I've been gathering information over time so that
Right.
in case if anything happens, in case if I'm not able to win the H1B lottery, or in case if my time runs out, I have a backup option that I could go
Right.
to.
So that's
Yeah,
a great advice. I think keeping your options open is very important, right?
yeah,
And I think to resonate to that fact, where like when I started my career after my master's,
mhm,
I was again, I think I applied to a lot of jobs. I got some offers, and I got an offer from an industry as well as from an academic position. And I think for at that point, I just joined that academic position. Right? It was in a hospital. How it helped me over the time was that visa was not a problem because I didn't have to go through a lottery. At that time, I might not have understood the issue. But now, when hear so many stories of people looking for H1B lotteries, not able to get it because it's random luck, right? You can't really
it
control
was
that
really
process.
nice.
You
Yeah,
just put in your application. If it gets selected, it's selected. If not, there's nothing you can do, right? So now I see that, well, I was kind of lucky because at that time I just thought, okay, let's go with this academic position. And it helped me in my EB1 as well because I got papers, I got citations. It's not that you can't do this with tech. I help a lot of people in tech as well with that. But to sum it up, I think somehow some decisions taken at certain points could be beneficial or can go against you. So you're having a backup plan or a plan to know, okay, if this goes wrong, this is what I would do is
Yeah,
important, right?
yeah, because I also feel like it's important for people to not be fixated in, oh
Ex-
my goodness, like I want to stay in America. I
Right,
wish America has the ability to give everyone green cards after their masters. I wish, but that
right.
is not the case.
That's not the
They can
case.
only give it to so many people. And one thing that I realized is that other countries, like let's say Canada or Europe, they're not that any different from America.
Right.
Yes, I mean, and I think it's I've and I think it's based on the research I've done.
Hmm.
Those countries, like each country has pros and cons, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I feel like it's best to not be so overly hyped about and overly stressing about trying to live in the States. Like just accept whatever it comes and
Right.
just know that everything happens for a reason at the right time.
Right.
If it's meant
That-
to happen, it's meant to happen. If it's not meant to happen, it's not meant to happen. So,
yeah. That's a very valid point. Don't get stuck. Keep your options open. Don't if you hit a roadblock, see if there's another passage you can try. Right. I think
yeah.
that's very important. And I think with this, let's we're kind of getting into the end of the podcast. So, two important questions I want to ask you. Right.
Yeah.
And I think these are the questions I ask everyone on this podcast because it's all about your journey, right? And how your journey can influence or help other people. So the
Mhm.
very first question is, do you think that America is still that dreamy place to come to? Right. That's the first part of the question. Let's start with that.
Yeah. Definitely yes. It's the land of opportunities after all.
Hmm.
But with that also comes with challenges that I feel like not many people want to tell in too early
Mm,
or reveal too early. So I feel like it's important to have a level-headed mind
mm,
and approach any decision with like a backup plan in mind.
right. Right.
Something that something that you've already planned out just in case if things fall through. Like
Right.
backup plan. Like you can go back to your home country or you can go to like Canada, Australia, New Zealand,
Right.
you those other
Yeah.
countries. So,
Right.
yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think this was one of the reasons I started this series, right? Because I think I have talked a lot about immigration. You might have, I'm not sure if you've seen the videos, but I made
Yeah.
more than 60 videos on different topics, covering EB1, different immigration visas and stuff.
Mhm.
But one thing I realized over the time, and I think that's why you would see me off from LinkedIn for some time, and then just think about what's the right thing I want to do, what I really want to do with YouTube, right? See, I could have made clickbait videos, got a lot of views, and people do, right? But if you go and see my titles, they're always to the point. Because I always think that I want to share the story which is true, right? Which
Yeah.
can influence people in the right way. And I think this podcast series, and I was again lucky that like we got a lot of registrations until October, so we have a lot of videos packed back to back, which is great. But I think the whole idea of the series is to just help people understand that, as you said, come with the mindset, learn from people who have already been this through this, right? Like make a mindset that yes, there would be problems, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
again, there would be again good things as well. It's not that it's always hurdles and hurdles. It would be good things because it's land of opportunity. You might get a very good job, you might get a very high paying job, and ultimately
Yeah.
everything will start to resolve, right? But if you have that in the mind, you'll be prepared for it, right? And that's what the whole idea of this podcast is, like bringing people from all parts of the world with the same logic and same mindset, how to succeed with more information, right?
Yeah.
So make your more like I think art AI and machine learning kind of work on the same logic. The best knowledge they have, the better the outcome. So if you have best
Yeah.
information in hand, your outcome would be probably better.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And I think with that, first of all, I will thank you for coming to the podcast, and then I'll have final question for you, which I think
Mhm.
would be your advice, right? Whatever you think is you want to share with everyone as one piece of advice that they should look into before they make a decision to come here on a F1 visa or any other visa or make a life out of in the United States. What would that be?
Yeah, a piece of advice or a piece of, I don't know how many advice I'm going to talk, but my general advice would be look at your options and
Mm,
think carefully from the financial side
mm,
or from the or, or from the lifestyle side.
right.
Because the thing is, as a case with F1 students, I know a lot of international students get hyped up about on-campus employment, and I can only talk on F1 student side because
Mm,
I have not been through the H1B side.
right.
But basically, from the F1 side, don't get fixated over, oh, this on-campus job, I can be this, I can be that, because it's not guaranteed.
Right.
CPT is also not guaranteed. CPT is for internships, it's
Right.
curriculum practical training, so that
Right.
is not guaranteed either.
Mm,
And just, I don't know, like just have a realistic plan of how you're going to support yourself in case you don't get things, because it's
makes
not a guarantee.
makes sense.
And definitely be willing to make trade-offs. Like you have to make sacrifices if you want a better life here. Like some people have to leave their family back home.
Right. True.
So it's
Very
like a sacrifice that you would have to make, and you have to walk into this knowing that the only source of support you're going to have in the States are your professors, your
true.
roommates,
Yeah. Your
your
friends.
friends. Oh yeah, and another thing about friends, go out, meet new people.
Right.
Don't just stick to your community of friends. Go out, explore other people, talk to Americans, talk to Mexicans, talk to so many people in the
Right. Very
university,
true.
and definitely invite them over for potlucks or lunches or dinners
Right.
or go for games, go for the shows. Like just like I don't know, like just have a good life.
Right.
You never know when your time in the States are gonna come to an end. You never know.
Makes sense. I think that's a very heartful advice, right? Because
Yeah,
go live what you are here for, right? Because that's what America is for. Like, have the
yeah,
talk to anyone you want, share your opinions, uh, and do what you really want to do, right? Because you're right. Again, visa and all of that is definitely a hurdle, but
it is.
no, sometimes there would be path, as you mentioned before, like there might be a passage and you still want to continue on that and make a better life out of what you have, right?
Mhm.
So with that, thank you for coming on the podcast, Shriram. That was
Yeah,
really, I was really happy talking to you. It was great. We kind of have a very straightforward conversation. That's the whole idea, right?
yeah,
Just have a conversation. We don't want to have questions and answers pre-decided. It should be more naturally driven conversation. I think I loved it. I hope you loved it too.
yeah.
And thank you. Thank you again for coming here.
Yes, yes, Puneet, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed just having the natural conversations, and I just loved sharing aspects of my life.
Right,
And I feel like not a lot of like I feel like not a lot of people would be willing to share like the high school experience, the whole college experience,
right,
because I feel like a lot of people come here either on work visas or they come here
right,
directly for their masters. So to have to hear a high school side
right.
will really benefit people, especially parents who have kids and are thinking of coming here. So yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.